Hi everyone. Welcome to another episode of Social Learning World. In this video, we are going to explain NCERT 8th Standard History Second Lesson from Trade to Territory Part 2. Last video, we had a discussion of Battle of Buxar. The Battle of Buxar established the system of dual government in Bengal, whereby the British had the right to collect revenue, the right of Nizamat including maintenance of law and order, dispensation of criminal justice and that of defending the frontiers remained with the Nawab. Now, the Diwani allowed the company to use the vast revenue resources of Bengal. This solved a major problem that the company had earlier faced. From the early 18th century, its trade with India had expanded, but it had to buy most of the goods in India with gold and silver imported from Britain. This was because at this time, Britain had no goods to sell in India. The overflow of gold from Britain slowed after the Battle of Plassey and entirely stopped after the assumption of Diwani. Now revenues from India could finance company expenses. So we can see company officials become nabobs. What is the meaning of the term nabob? It is an anglicized version of the Indian word nawab. Nabob means it's anglicized version of the Indian word Nawab. What did it mean to be Nawabs? It meant that the company acquired more power and authority. Each company servant began to have vision of living like Nawabs. After the Battle of Plassey, the actual Nawabs of Bengal were forced to give land and vast sums of money as personal gift to the company officials. Robert Clive himself amassed a fortune in India. He came to Madras at the age of 18. When he left India, his Indian fortune was worth 4 lakh pounds. When he was appointed as the governor of Bengal in 1764, he was asked to remove corruption in company administration, but he was himself cross-examined in 1772 by the British Parliament, which was suspicious of vast wealth. Although he was acquitted, he committed suicide in 1774. Not all company officials succeeded in making money like Clive. Many died an early death in India due to disease and war, and it would not be right to regard all of them as corrupt and dishonest. Those who managed to return with wealth led flashy lives and flaunted their riches. They were called nabobs. Those rich people are called nabobs. Nabobs is an anglicized version of the Indian word Nawab. Now, let's analyze the process of annexation of Indian states by the East India Company from 1757 to 1857. So, let's see. Subsidiary alliance. The subsidiary alliance system was a non-intervention policy used by Lord Wellesley, who was the Governor General, to establish British Empire in India. The subsidiary alliance started by Lord Wellesley was the most effective instrument for the expansion of British territory and political influence in India. So what is subsidiary alliance? According to this system, every ruler in India had to accept to pay a subsidy to the British for the maintenance of British army. According to the terms of this alliance, Indian rulers were not allowed to have their independent armed forces. They were to be protected by the company, but had to pay for the subsidiary forces that the company was supposed to maintain for the purpose of this protection. If the Indian rulers failed to make the payment, then part of their territory was taken away as penalty. The Nawab of Oudh and Hyderabad were forced to give over parts of their territory as they had failed to pay for the alliance. Now let's see the main provisions of the system, that is subsidiary alliance included. The British agreed to maintain a permanent and fixed subsidiary force within the territory of their ally, that is ruler. In return, they didn't take money but took over a part of the territory of the ally. A British official called resident was placed at the court of the ruler. The ally could not maintain any relation with any other ruler without the approval of the British. The ruler, those who are signing in this subsidiary alliance, the British agreed to maintain a permanent and fixed subsidiary force within the territory of that ruler. In return, they did not take money, but they took over part of the territory, that ruler's territory. A British official called a resident was placed at the court of the ruler, and the ruler could not maintain any relation with any other ruler without the approval of the British. Now, let's see Tipu Sultan, the Tiger of Mysore. Tipu Sultan 1750 to 1799, also known as the Tiger of Mysore, was the ruler of the Kingdom of Mysore from 1782 to 1799. Who is known as the Tiger of Mysore? Tipu Sultan. He is also known as Tiger of Mysore. Tipu was the eldest son of Sultan Hyder Ali. Who was Hyder Ali? Hyder Ali was the ruler of Mysore from 1761 to 1782. During his reign, he did not encourage trade with the British as he had formed an alliance with the French. Tipu engaged in expansionist attacks against his neighbors. He did not allow trade with the British. Tipu Sultan and his father Hyder Ali also did not allow trade with the British. In the Third Anglo-Mysore War, there were 4 Anglo-Mysore wars. In the Third Anglo-Mysore War, Tipu was forced into a humiliating treaty, losing a number of previously conquered territories, including Malabar and Mangalore. That treaty is known as Treaty of Srirangapattanam. In the Third Anglo-Mysore War, Tipu and British, between Tipu and British, there was a treaty that is called Treaty of Srirangapattanam. Srirangapattanam was the capital of Tipu, and forced into a humiliating treaty, that is losing a number of previously conquered territories, including Malabar and Mysore. In the Fourth Anglo-Mysore War, in the Fourth Anglo-Mysore War, the combined forces of the British East India Company and the Nizam of Hyderabad defeated Tipu, and he was killed on 4th May 1799. That was the end of Anglo-Mysore Wars. Mysore was placed under the former ruling dynasty of the Vodayas, and a subsidiary alliance was imposed on the state. Let's see war with Marathas. The Marathas and the British fought 3 Anglo-Maratha wars before the British assumed control over their kingdom. The first Anglo-Maratha War, that is 1775 to 1782, was the first of three Anglo-Maratha wars fought between the British East India Company and the Maratha Empire in India. The war began with the Treaty of Surat and ended with the Treaty of Salbai. First Anglo-Maratha War started with the Treaty of Surat and ended with the Treaty of Salbai. The third Anglo-Maratha War, 1817 to 1818, was the final and decisive conflict between the British East India Company and the Maratha Empire in India. The war left the company in control of most of India. It began with an invasion of the Maratha territory by East India Company's troops. The claim to paramountcy. Under Lord Hastings, Governor General from 1813 to 1823, a new policy of paramountcy was initiated. Now the company claimed that its authority was paramount or supreme. Hence its power was greater than that of Indian state. That is, paramountcy means supreme power. Now the company claimed that its power is supreme than Indian state. In order to protect its interest, it was justified in annexing or threatening to annex any Indian kingdom. This process, however, did not go unchallenged. For example, we can see when British tried to annex a small state of Kittur, Rani Chennamma took arms and led an anti-British resistance movement. The doctrine of lapse. The final wave of annexations occurred under Lord Dalhousie, who was the Governor General from 1848 to 1856. He devised a policy that came to be known as the doctrine of lapse. So the doctrine of lapse was an annexation policy devised by Lord Dalhousie. He used the doctrine of lapse as a means of extending the empire. In India, every Hindu had a right to adopt a male child as his heir in the absence of a natural heir. This was sanctioned by both religion and society. However, when Lord Dalhousie came to India, he decided that the rulers of the dependent states would have to seek permission of the British to adopt an heir to the throne. Thus, the British acquired the right to sanction or refuse such an adoption by a dependent Indian ruler. In case of refusal, the territory of the ruler without a male heir was annexed by the British. So this policy was devised by Lord Dalhousie, and this is known as doctrine of lapse. The doctrine declared that if an Indian ruler died without a male heir, his kingdom would lapse, that is, become part of company territory. One kingdom after another was annexed simply by applying this doctrine of lapse. We can see Satara, Sambalpur, Jhansi, Jaipur, Udaipur and Nagpur. These are the places annexed by British by using doctrine of lapse. Easily you can remember SSJJUN. Satara Sambalpur SS, Jhansi Jaipur JJ, then Udaipur and Nagpur UN. In 1856, Lord Dalhousie annexed the state of Awadh and deposed its ruler Wajid Ali Shah. Lord Dalhousie claimed misgovernment as reason for his annexation. The growing number of regions that Britain was assimilating within its fold, the British set up a new system of administration. Their main purpose was to benefit from trade and increase their profits through trade. Improving the welfare of the people and the country as a whole was never one of Britain's intention. The British divided the territories into three presidencies: Bombay, Bengal, and Madras. Each presidency was administered by a governor. Supreme head of the administration was the Governor General. British territories were broadly divided into administrative units called presidencies. There were three presidencies: Bengal, Madras, and Bombay. Each presidency was ruled by a governor. The supreme head of the administration was the Governor General. Who was the first Governor General? Warren Hastings, the first Governor General, introduced several administrative reforms, notably in the sphere of justice. Each district was to have two courts: a criminal court, that is Faujadari Adalat, and a civil court, Diwani Adalat. The European district collectors who presided over civil courts. The criminal courts were under a Qazi and a Mufti, but under the supervision of the collectors. Who is a Qazi? Qazi means a judge. Mufti, what is the meaning of the term Mufti? A jurist of the Muslim community, responsible for expounding the law that the Qazi would administer. Qazi, a judge; Mufti, a jurist of the Muslim community, is responsible for expounding the law that the Qazi would administer. So from 1772, a new system of justice was established. Each district was to have two courts. Which are the two courts? A criminal court. A criminal court is called Faujadari Adalat, and a civil court, Diwani Adalat. Then Maulavis and Hindu Pandits interpreted Indian laws for the European district collectors who presided over the civil courts. European district collectors presided over the civil court. Criminal courts were under a Qazi and a Mufti, but under the supervision of the collectors. The principal figure in an Indian district was the collector. What is the meaning of the term collector? His main job was to collect revenue and taxes and maintain law and order in his district with the help of judges, police officers, and darogas. Then collector's office is called the collectorate. It became the new center of power and patronage that steadily replaced previous holders of authority. Now let's see the company army. What is special in company's army? The Mughal army was mainly composed of cavalry and infantry. Colonial rule in India brought in some new ideas of administration and reform, but its power rested on its military strength. The Mughal army was mainly composed of cavalry, that is trained soldiers on horseback. Cavalry means savas. Mughal army, it is known as savas. Trained soldiers on horseback, and infantry. What is infantry? Pedal or foot soldiers. They were given training in archery and the use of the sword. The cavalry dominated the army, and the Mughal state did not feel the need to have a large professionally trained infantry. The rural areas had a large number of armed peasants, and the local zamindars often supplied the Mughals with paid soldiers, that is foot soldiers, infantry. So we can see during this period a major change occurred. A change occurred in the 18th century when Mughal successor states like Oudh and Banaras started recruiting peasants into their armies and training them as professional soldiers. There was a change occurred in the 18th century when Mughal successor states like Oudh and Banaras started recruiting peasants into their armies and training them as professional soldiers. The East India Company adopted the same method when it began recruitment for its own army. That army came to be known as Sepoy Army. What is the meaning of the term? Sepoy. Sepoy means Indian soldiers in British Army. So East India Company started recruiting peasants into their armies and training them as professional soldiers. That soldiers came to be known as Sepoy Army. That Indian word it is Sipai, meaning soldier. The soldiers were increasingly subjected to European style training, drill, and discipline that regulated their life far more than before. So, in the early 19th century, the British began to develop a uniform military culture. Soldiers were increasingly subjected to European style training, drill, and discipline that regulated their life far more than before. Thus, the East India Company was transformed from a trading company to a territorial colonial power. The arrival of new steam technology in the early 19th century also aided this process. Steamships reduced the journey time to 3 weeks, enabling more Britishers and their families to come to a far-off country like India. By 1857, the company came to exercise direct rule over about 63% of the territory and 78% of the population of the Indian subcontinent. Combined with its indirect influence on the remaining territory and population of the country, the East India Company had virtually the whole of India under its control. So now we understood that a country came for trade and how they became the masters of that country. Now let's discuss questions and answers related to this topic. What attracted European trading companies to India? What are the things that attracted European trading companies to India? The fine qualities of cotton and silk produced in India had a big market in Europe. The fine qualities of cotton and silk attracted European trading companies, and also pepper, cloves, cardamom and cinnamon too were in great demand. So these are the things attracted European trading companies: cotton and silk, and pepper, cloves, cardamom and cinnamon, etc. attracted European trading companies. What were the areas of conflict between the Bengal Nawabs and the East India Company? The company tried continuously to press for more concessions and manipulate existing privileges. Officials of the company who were carrying on private trade on the side were expected to pay duty. But what happened? This they refused to pay, causing an enormous loss of revenue for Bengal. So there was conflict between the Bengal Nawabs and East India Company. So company tried continuously to press more concessions and manipulate existing privileges. Officials of the company who were carrying on private trade, they were expected to pay duty, but they refused to pay duty, causing enormous loss of revenue for Bengal. Now let's see what is subsidiary alliance. According to the terms of the alliance, Indian rulers were not allowed to have their independent armed forces. They came under the protection of East India Company. But the rulers had to pay for the subsidiary forces that the company was supposed to maintain for the purpose of this protection. If the rulers failed to make the payment, then part of their territory was taken away as penalty. So who started subsidiary alliance? Lord Wellesley started subsidiary alliance. What is subsidiary alliance? So according to this alliance, Indian rulers were not allowed to have their independent armed forces. They came under the protection of East India Company. But the rulers had to pay for the subsidiary forces that the company was supposed to maintain for the purpose of this protection. If the Indian rulers failed to make the payment, then part of their territory was taken away as penalty. How did the assumption of Diwani benefit East India Company? I told you the British got right to collect revenue after the Battle of Buxar. That is in 1765. The Mughal emperor appointed the company as the Diwan of the provinces of Bengal. Then, how the assumption of Diwani benefit this East India Company? The Diwani allowed the company to use the vast revenue resources of Bengal. This solved a major problem that the company had earlier faced. What was the problem that company had earlier faced? So we can see British buy most of the things, most of the goods in India with gold and silver imported from Britain. This was because at this time Britain had no goods to sell in India. The overflow of gold from Britain slowed after Battle of Plassey and completely stopped after the assumption of Diwani. Now revenues from India could finance companies' expenses. In what way was the administration of the company different from that of Indian rulers? What was the difference we can see there in British administration? In British administration, the company divided territories into administrative units called presidencies. There were 3 presidencies: Bengal, Madras and Bombay. Each presidency was ruled by a governor. Districts were the main administrative units. It was ruled by the collector. The supreme head of the administration of the company was Governor General. Each presidency, there were 3 presidencies. Each presidency was ruled by a governor, but the supreme head of the administration of the company was the Governor General. Describe the changes that occurred in the composition of the company's army. East India Company started recruiting peasants into their army, which came to be known as Sepoy Army. Soldiers were increasingly subjected to European style training, drill, and discipline. Caste and community feelings were ignored.